Yeah. Are you still kind of under the government's boot, or?
Definitely not now.
We'll get into that
We
shortly.
will
Stay
get into
tuned,
that.
kids.
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts, Mitch and Nathan. Mitch is a former airborne infantry squad leader who now spends most of his time coaching soccer. Nathan is a professional illustrator and an avid shooter with a couple of years of Canadian military experience. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
I don't know.
Well, I know. I found you guys.
Oh, go ahead.
Are we
It's
just
pretty
talking
cool,
about
though.
Brett Fabush's hair?
Yeah, we are. He has weird fucking hair.
I believe
I think
so.
his hair is pretty nice.
Yeah, when he followed me,
I think it's nice. He seems like a nice guy.
I'm sure he is a nice
he's
guy.
a pastor. Of course, he's going to have weird hair. But
I don't know.
it's just it's strange when you sent that he followed us, and just sent a picture of his face being like, "Hey, who is this guy?" I probably laughed harder than I ever have. Sorry, I feel like we cut Justin off.
Yeah,
Justin, what were you?
Justin, what were you saying? Sorry.
Nothing.
No, come on. Now I'm curious.
Nathan, I lost my train of thought here.
I'm so bad for that. So we have Mitch. Mitch has alcohol for the first time in a long time, but I feel it's good and it's well deserved because Mitch just had a baby for the first time.
I did.
Mitch, what do you have to say for yourself?
I have the easiest fucking child in the world. She pretty much sleeps through the night already. She's very calm. She'll just entertain herself. Everybody's happy and healthy, and yeah, things are great.
What gets me, Mitch, is she's massive. Like you'll send me pictures of yourself. Like when it's not a picture of you pooping or a picture of your dog, it's a picture of her, and she's basically your size already.
She is an absolute fucking unit. Her toes,
she's a unit,
dude. Her toes are like they're so long. Like she has big feet and big hands, and she wasn't born heavy. She was only like a little over 8 pounds, but she was like 24 inches long. Yeah, she's an absolute fucking unit of a baby.
That is awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Congrats again.
Thank you. So today we got Justin with Qore Performance.
Qore Performance. You pronounce it Qore? For a while I pronounced it Qore.
Why?
Like Qore with a Q. I don't know.
That's the most
I just
fucking
did,
Canadian thing.
You're the most fucking Canadian thing, Mitch. But yeah, I pronounced it Qore, and I don't know why. It took me so long to just tune into the fact it's Qore Performance. Like,
yeah,
like an Apple core, not Qore.
It was
like,
just that makes. I mean, like we've heard all kinds of things. People spell our name Quore all the time.
Qore?
Even though,
what?
Yeah, Qore is another one that we get a lot.
Qore.
And it really just comes back to like when JD and I were trying to come up with names for the company, we were like, oh, well, we affect core temperature, but we can't use CORE because like we'll never get a trademark for that. That would be ridiculous, right? We'll never get a domain. And then we were like, oh, well, because we're fucking nerds. JD was like, oh, well, Q is the heat transfer coefficient. We could make it QORE.
Oh, that's clever.
And we all thought,
yeah,
we were of course very proud of ourselves and nerding out to that.
Yeah.
Little did we know, way back in 2015 or whatever when we did that people were going to have a hard time with it at first. Now, not so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's actually really interesting. It's a good time to segue into this. This episode is brought to you by Qore Performance. Qore Performance.
Oh, my Lord.
Fuck, I forgot the whole Big Daddy bit. It's been so long since I've seen it.
The Costco of the gun world.
The Costco of keeping you cool. Qore Performance. Stay frosted. We're just kidding. This isn't a sponsorship at all. Justin's pretty cool. We just brought him on.
So when you started the company, like what was the inspiration for, even starting? Like where did you get this idea? Because your first product was essentially the I don't even know what to call it, the cooling
TCCC base layers.
Yeah, So how did that start? Like what was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so it originally started. I used to be in law enforcement in San Diego, and
I'm so sorry.
I worked on a backcountry team, and we were on this manhunt. Short story long, it was really hot, and we were in the mountains, like 4,000 feet above sea levels, like 100 degrees. And I was just like, man, this kind of sucks. Like, and people can read about the story and they can watch our YouTube video if they're really interested. But I was just kind of like, this sucks. Need to fix this. How do we fix this? And I remember this study that was done at Stanford by these two biologists, and they figured out that if you applied a certain amount of cooling to the body during and after exercise, then you could beat the performance enhancing effects of anabolic steroids. And I was
Really?
like, what? Yeah, it's called the Stanford cooling glove. People can Google it and everything and read the study and everything, because we did. And we have them to thank for basically the kind of the idea that birthed the company. And they came up with this Stanford cooling glove, which is a phenomenal invention, very, very powerful, but it's very impractical because you have to put your hands in this big plastic contraption, and you have to plug it into a wall and a cooler and sit there while it extracts heat from the palms of your hands. Very effective, peer-reviewed data, et cetera, but you can't go anywhere with it, right? So you're constantly tethered to some type of infrastructure. And so I was trying to think like, well, how do we get I would take 10% of that benefit for an infinite gain in mobility. And I had just gone through TCCC, so I remembered how to treat hypothermia and heat stroke. And I was like, oh, well, what if we use conduction to extract heat from the pulse points, right? Because that's what they teach you in TCCC, right? They teach you brachial, ulnar radial, femoral, carotid, et cetera. And anyway, so that's how TCCC base layers was born. Kind of just merged TCCC with compression base layers with the Stanford research, and boom, the idea for the company was born. But and then JD and I got together and started the company sometime after that.
That is really freaking cool. That is so. I didn't know there was I've always been impressed by your stuff, but at the same time, I kind of thought it was like water cooled plate. That makes sense. I didn't think it was more than temperature regulating gear.
Oh yeah, no, it's everything that we've done is designed to literally enhance human physiology, and it's largely based around the work of Dennis Grahn and Craig Heller, who did phenomenal research under a DARPA grant, and that's how the Stanford cooling glove was born. But it just wasn't mobile, right? They had already built a ton of these things. They'd taken them to a military police unit, and I think they also tested them with the 101st. But again, just not practical, right? Like you put hand in glove, sit down in chair, stay tied to wall, require full power, right? Like It's just not something that people can use in the field. And you really need the benefits of human thermoregulation when you're in the field, right? And so that's kind of where we came in and where we merged with TCCC, right? We put TCCC on Kickstarter in December of 2015. And then a TRADOC office found us, and then they were like, hey, we love what you guys are doing. Would you help us out with body armor cooling? How about we send you all of our data, see what you guys come up with? And we were too stupid to know that we should have said no to that. Being a government contractor actually sucks.
Oh, yeah. As with anything to do with the government.
And just working with the government, kind of sucks. We just didn't know any better. We were just like, oh, we want to help our country. We want to, help contribute to the, to the defense of our nation. JD and I are both extremely patriotic, as I'm sure anybody can tell from our feed or whatever. And so we were like, yeah, we will do that. Like, we would love to stop this. We as a country, we're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on what is essentially a self-inflicted gunshot wound, that being heat injuries in the military. And they know it, right? And so they were just like, yeah, how about we send you all of our data and help us, right? So they gave us the performance target. It was 140 watts of cooling over 2 hours. So I think if I remember, it's 70 watt hours basically. And they're like, you guys are at 15 watts. Is there any way you can help us get to 70? And we're like, sure. Well, what are the restrictions? And they were like, well, no power, no batteries, no moving parts, no wires, no electronics. Oh, and you can't add any weight to the warfighter kit. And we were like, have you done the math on 140 watts and not using batteries? That's fucking impossible. How the hell are you going to do that? Right. And they were like, yeah. We know we've spent 300 million on this over 25 years, and we're no closer today than we were when we started. Hence why we're calling you guys. Are you guys game? And we're like, yeah, sure. Okay. We'll take a stab at it. So fast forward, that was December of 2015, January 2016. I'm having beers with my buddy, Marcus Capone, who now runs a phenomenal nonprofit called Vets. It's the whole another subject. And Marcus tells me, he's like, hey, Justin, you're your base layers remind me of what we used to do in Afghanistan all the time. And I was like, oh, well, what's that, Marcus? I have no idea. I've never been to Afghanistan. I wasn't in the military. And he was like, oh, well, we just take bottled water and we freeze it in our freezers, and then we jam it in our plate carriers and our pants pockets before we go outside the wire. And I'm like, whoa, 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 wait, you guys have freezers over there? He's like, dude, we eat frozen yogurt over there. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, is this you guys, just you guys? Because he was with a special mission unit, or is this like everybody? And he's like, no, bro, like everybody gets frozen yogurt. Like anybody can get ice cream. And I'm like, what? And so then I was just kind of like thinking, and on my drive home, I was like, wait a second. Marcus just gave me the key to this whole thing. Okay, water is a battery. The freezer, think of the freezer as like our lightning cable or USB-C cable. It's the charger. Okay. And I'm like, well, wait a second. So they're already carrying the water, they're carrying the battery, right? So I just need to figure out how much power is stored in the battery that they're already carrying. So I called JD. JD went to Stanford and majored in engineering, and so he's way, way fucking better at math than I am. I just look like I can do math, but I actually was like a fucking C math student. So people just assume when you're Asian that you can do math. It's not.
Oh, I
true.
feel that's so fucking hard.
Yeah, it's not true, right?
Yeah.
So I called
man, I'm
JD.
terrible at it.
And JD's back here in Virginia. I'm out in San Diego, and I'm like, JD, how much power is stored in 100 ounces of water when frozen? And he's like, geez, Justin, he's like, that's hard math for even for me. And JD, by the way, just like quick aside, is a savant when it comes to math. I've never met anybody in my life better at math than JD. He's just like absolutely gifted. And so when he tells me, he's like, yeah, that math is hard even for me, I'm going to have to look it up. I know that like I've stumbled on some tough math. And so he calls me back in 10 minutes and he's like, this is pretty rough, but I think I'm close. I think I'm within 5%. It's about 147 watts over 2 hours and 10 or 2 hours and 14 minutes. So I was like, holy shit, JD, we've got it. And he's like, what do we have? And I'm like, they're already carrying camelbacks. They're issued camelbacks. They have an NSN. Camelbacks are 100 ounces. If 100 ounces stores 147 watts over 2 hours and 10 minutes, all we have to do is reshape the camelback so that it addresses TRADOC's requirement of truncated torso cooling. And he's like, well, how the fuck are we going to do that? And I'm like, we got to shape it like the one thing, because another requirement they had was universal body armor compatibility. And I was like, well, how else? What, why don't we just shape it like the one thing that every piece of body armor in the inventory has to carry? And he was
the ice
like,
plate. Yes, I know this one. Yeah.
Yes. And so anyway, that's how the ice plate was born.
That actually makes sense. Yeah, I heard about the ice plate before you followed us, before we started talking, like a long time ago. A buddy of mine sent a link to it, and he's like, this is fucking cool. And we meant to group order that, and we never did. Because I bought nods. Because I'm like an idiot. Actually, no, I don't regret buying nods at all.
So before
nods are a good.
Before you came out with that, I wish that it existed when I initially went through basic training, and I actually was a heat injury later on.
Oh.
But in basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia, the way that we cooled down after like a ruck or a long movement, the drill sergeants would hook up to one of the fire hydrants and just literally, they enjoyed the shit out of it because the water pressure is fucking insane. And they would just spray the shit out of us, and they'd be like, privates, this is for your own goddamn health. You're going to cool the fuck down. No heat injuries here. And we're like dying and trying to like also drink water at the same time because our camelback was empty. We're like, ugh. But then fast forward, it was like a year and a half after basic training, I went into Ukraine during that whole fucking like not civil war thing they had going on.
Yeah.
My buddy Samoa accidentally left his tap system, and one of the Ukrainian platoons that we were training just took it and started wearing it. So my team leader saw that and fucked us up in the middle of summer in Ukraine for hours. And then we had like a 6 mile ruck back. And this was like right before the walk back. We just got fucked up for hours. And then we had to walk back. I don't remember what happened, but the story that was told, we were like a mile away. And I was the last person in the formation, and one of my buddies turned around and looked at me like drooling all over myself, like stumbling like across the road, carrying my ruck, and then he just comes over and shoves me to the ground and takes my camelback and pours it on me.
What?
But we're just walking in Ukraine. We're not in a military base. We're just walking through a village in
Yeah.
Ukraine. And this fucking car pulls up and is like, we'll take him to hospital. So they just put me unconscious with no battle buddy, no friend, no nothing, with my gun and my nods in this random Ukrainian
my
civilian's
God.
car. I wake up just when they're giving me the silver bullet in my ass. And and I mean, luckily they did. They brought me to medical. But I mean, that could have been some fucking Russian fucking Spetsnaz
Yeah.
kidnapping me, because we were relatively close to the border at the time.
I mean, it could have been the FSB or the GRE. I mean, it could have been
anybody. And yeah, I woke up getting a silver bullet in
Welcome
my
to the
ass.
military.
Yeah.
Just like, do you expect anything more? Do you expect them not to hand you over to a boatload of, like, a car full
Yeah.
of random fucking Eastern Europeans? Do you expect them not
Yeah.
to leave you stranded in Japan for 5 months?
Yep.
Like, what do you expect?
Yeah, and
I mean, that silver bullet totally could have been an interrogation.
totally. Well, luckily it was my platoon sergeant. So we were like a mile away from the base that we were staying at, and I guess the Ukrainians, luckily they were good fucking people. They were like, "Oh, we have this unconscious, heat-catted soldier with weapons in the back of our car now. Let's bring him to the
Weapons and like $10,000
Yeah.
fucking night vision. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So they brought us.
Unbelievable.
Yep, they brought me onto the base apparently, and my platoon sergeant eventually caught up, but I was still unconscious when he got there. And they were like, "No, we got a fucking silver bullet this man's ass." And I woke up just at that point, and I just see my platoon sergeant staring at me, and I'm like, "Oh!" This is like 17, 18-year-old me. Yeah, I was
Oh my
probably like
gosh.
18, close to 19 at that point. Yeah.
Oh my fuck.
Getting a simulation of prison.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
I ended up getting a coin from what was his name? General Ordierno. He came and visited, and they told him what had happened. They're like, "Oh wow, this is like the youngest soldier in the in Battle Company 2503. I want to give him a coin." And he heat-catted, and we put him in a random Ukrainian person's car. So yeah, it was a good time.
That's
So
incredible.
is that story why you're leaving?
No. So
Oh my god, this is one of many. This is the least of the bad.
This is the least.
Or do we have to drop in here?
No. This is fine. I've told this story before, but just to sum it up for you, back.
This is the first time I've heard it. I've known you for a fucking bit.
So when the initial injury that hurt my back and neck, I was in Afghanistan, and the way that they work over there, they're fucking assholes. They wait. I mean, not all the time, but they're smart. So like, after you walk through a village all day in the sun and you didn't find anything and you're getting excited, ready to go back to base, that's when they shoot at you when you're loading up. So I got my whole squad on the back of it was either a MATV. It was in a MATV or LMTV. I don't remember. It was probably a MATV. And they had just started shooting with us. So I still had my ruck on. I had my kit. I had everything. And I jumped off the back because I'm like, holy shit, we're being shot at. And jumping off the back of one of those things with all that weight, my back said, no, you're not going to do that. But that was years ago. And I've had progressive problems to the point where it pushes down on my quasi-quadrant nerve and I piss myself. But I'm always like, fuck it. Like, I'll keep going. I'm fine. But the last year and a half, it's gotten so bad. And they recently just were like, oh yeah, by the way, you have a fractured neck on top of the disc problems in your back. So I'm getting retired, but
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I was going to get the fuck out anyway.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about the ice plate, I just kept thinking about those two stories about how we used to get cooled off, and when I was a heat injury, and I'm like, man, that shit would have been fucking nice when I was a young soldier.
You're not kidding. I mean, it is kind of unfortunate, you know, the the procurement bureaucracy being what it is, I mean, we could literally prevent 100% of DoD heat injuries. They're totally preventable, with our system now, but is what it is.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I'm not just blaming, because I probably should have hydrated a little better throughout the day. I am blaming my dickhead team leader, who at the time I knew was a terrible leader. Looking back as a leader myself, he was a fucking terrible leader.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, like, the man fucked us up for hours
Yeah.
in the heat, and then didn't give us time to like recover anything. Then it's like, all right, we're rucking back to base in the heat as well, midday. Get fucked. And then he was surprised that I was a heat casualty, but I don't know, it's funny.
And I'm sure he was promoted for the action.
Funny, I recently found out, and when I say recently, I'm like 4 years ago. This is how fucking long I've been in the military. But like 4 years ago, I had PCS. Was I PCSing to Carson at the time? Anyways, I found out that he decided he got out of the military. He jumped out of a building and broke his legs.
Oh shit!
Yeah, get fucked, nerd.
Like on purpose? What happened? Did he just like goodbye cruel world and just fucking try and end it?
So,
or was he just?
So this is my perspective of him now. When he was my team leader, is a bit different, but my perspective of him now was this dude deployed with 10th Mountain as a private, never saw combat, and then was really fucking salty he never saw combat. He would always get really drunk and talk about, man, like, I was on a 240 position and we were going to engage on these guys, and then I was told I couldn't, and I was just still thinking, man, if I just pulled the trigger and said that they were shooting at me first. Like, he was one of those, like, really...
What's wrong with people like that? Genuinely.
He was one of those guys, and he became my team leader. But he was also the type of guy where right before we were gonna like go out and like do training or something, he would go to the arms room, draw my weapon, cut the tie down, give it back to the armorer, and then literally he'd be standing there. So as soon as I draw my weapon and I'm checking it for tie down, he's like, "Why the fuck is your ACOG not tied down?" and just start fucking me up. So that's what this type of dude was. He was just a really...
What a piece of shit.
Genuinely what a piece of shit.
Just a really terrible person. But what I think happened...
Yeah.
He got really drunk like he usually does. And he was like, I was in the fucking army. I can jump out of this building. I was airborne. And jumped out and broke his legs. That's what I think. That's personally what I think happens. And he can get fucked.
Fucking tard.
I learned so much about how not to be from him. And he was my team leader for like a year and a half. It was fucking miserable.
Learning what not to do in life is often more valuable than learning what to do.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Completely agree with that.
Well, you learn more from the shitty people in your life, I think, than the good people. Because you're like, okay, I'm never going to fucking be like this. I'm never going to do this way because the way that I experienced this from this person was fucking terrible, and I don't want to be like that to somebody else.
It's time for a quick interruption from me, BR, the producer of the show, and the only Brit in your life that wants you, yes you, to be armed to the fucking teeth. Want to help us keep the lights on here at the Art and War Show while receiving exclusive listener benefits? Keep Nathan's fridge stocked with White Claws and Mitch's with... I guess just Mixer, as he doesn't really drink. You should check out our Patreon. With 5 different levels, you can subscribe to get access to all the lads' content that would get them nuked off Instagram, downloadable high-res guides, behind-the-scenes info, memes not fit for the boring, and at our highest tier, receive custom art from the masterful art gimp himself, Nathan, once a month. You can find our Patreon via the link in this episode's description, or in the Seaburn Art page's bio on Instagram. Oh, spoiler alert, Mitch actually does get drunk in this episode. And he sounds completely normal. Maybe even interviews slightly better? Anywho, thanks for listening, people. Now let's get back to Justin and Qore Performance.
Yeah, I mean, don't they teach that in psychology that we're more inclined to expend more effort to protect against loss than we are to expend effort to achieve gain? I think there's something in psychology about that. I didn't study that.
Say that again. I did study psychology, actually.
Oh, okay. So isn't there something in psychology about how we will expend more effort to prevent loss than we will to achieve gain?
That doesn't even sound familiar to me. If I didn't cover that in psychology, I have no fucking idea. But that does.
It's possible that I got that from something that I learned in marketing somewhere. That I don't remember. Fucking
it
disregard.
sounds right.
Yeah, the
just with
sentiment
what I
point
know
being
about
sounds right. Yeah.
people, but
No,
sorry about this weird blue light. I have a UV light on in the background, trying to cure some stuff.
no, you're
Sorry,
fine.
go on.
But anyways, when you were talking about the ice play and like what the whole product is that you got, even the first moment I saw you guys and what you were doing, I just remember thinking about those 2 times where I was a heat injury and how they used to cool us off, and I'm like, man, like, because even I've had soldiers now that heat cat, and I feel like it's always my fault. Even though I'm like, hey, drink water, eat salty foods. Yeah, we have to move really far, but like at some point when you're carrying so much shit and you have a plate carrier on that's trapping that heat in, like you can only do so much.
Yep.
And
There's a special hell about walking in hot weather with a plate carrier and any form of weight at all.
it's terrible.
Any weight.
It's fucking terrible.
Or any type of body armor. Like
Yeah.
PPE in hot weather is fucking
death.
miserable. Yeah.
I'm so surprised that only within the last, what'd you say, 2015 is when you figured that out?
December of 2015 is when we launched the company on Kickstarter, and Tradoc found us.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you still kind of under the government's boot, or?
Definitely not now.
We'll get into that shortly.
We will
Stay
get into
tuned,
that.
kids.
So it does blow my mind though that only within like the last 6 or 7 years that this is like new technology. Like it seems so obvious. I'm sure it's not obvious like coming up with it, but now that it exists, I'm like, this makes so much fun.
Why the fuck why isn't this the norm? Why isn't this standard?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and it's what I'm about to say probably will surprise. It definitely won't surprise you two, and it won't surprise probably anybody who's been in the military. But there's within military and within government writ large, as you guys know, there's very much like an old guard that protects against innovation, essentially.
Oh, and 100%.
Right. It could be a general, a flag officer, it could be a senior enlisted guy, whatever. But it's that's not how we've always done things, and these kids have it too easy these days. They don't need that shit, whatever. Right. And that sentiment, right? We've all been around that guy. We had that guy at my department. I mean, basically anybody who's ever fucking worn a uniform and carried a gun for a living or worked for a government agency knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? And that mindset was a huge hurdle for us. I mean, frankly, that mindset's still a hurdle for us sometimes, less so with every day that passes. But my gosh, when we first came on and we gave our presentation that Tradoc had arranged for us, which I think you can find on YouTube somewhere, holy shit, did we face the gauntlet of old guard. And it was always like 2-star here or like a command sergeant major there, like that's never going to work, blah, 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 blah. So that was, I think, my opinion, looking back, I think that mindset and the presence of those types of personalities and the fact that they carry outsized influence, especially given their mindset, was one of the reasons why I think it's been so hard for line guys to be able to get a hold of our stuff.
Well, it's the good old boys club, and that's with any equipment, like it's only been very recently where back when I was still able to actively train and do squad leader shit, I would show up with like a plate carrier that was lighter, still carried everything I needed, still was within standard, and they'd be like, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "It's a better plate carrier. It's lighter, but it still does everything that the plate carrier that you're giving me does. It's just lighter, makes me more mobile, makes me a better soldier." And they're like, "No, fuck that shit. You need to get the other one." And I'm like, "Why?" Well, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And the excuse that I always hear is, "Well, it's not dress right dress. Everybody doesn't have it." I'm like, "Well,
who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit? Like it's a multicam, it's a plate carrier, and it has all the same shit on it that you require of everybody else. It is just lighter and makes me a better soldier. It makes me a more lethal squad leader. Because as a squad leader, I'm running back and forth between my two teams, because our fucking comms don't work all the time. I was getting tired of carrying. I mean, and I never had the IOTV because I was always a special boy ever since I deployed with the 173rd, or quote unquote deployed. The Army counts as a deployment. You tell anybody in the 173rd your deployment was to Ukraine and Estonia, they're like, you're a fucking loser. But when we went there, they gave us RFI. So I've had a plate carrier since I got into the military, and everybody else always has an IOTV. But running up and down with my
People still use IOTVs in fucking 2021.
yeah, the infantry still has IOTVs for training. Not
Are you
me.
fucking serious?
Not me. I've always carried my RFI with me, so I still have my issued plate carrier. But
I mean, we get at least 5 to 10 emails a day or messages in some form or another about IOTVs.
they're stupid.
Jesus.
For
They're
sure.
so dumb.
Yeah.
They're so dumb. They were dumb
It's a
in like the
terrible
early
design.
2000s.
I remember
Yeah.
when I first had an IOTV, it was the only time I ever had one was basic training, and I was just trying to lift my arms up, and I'm like, I am so restricted to my movement that I rather not wear body armor. Like I'd rather just not have body armor than to wear this stupid fucking IOTV.
Well, the enemy was wearing pajamas.
Yeah, they're running around cool as fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just always mind blowing to me.
Like everyone's like, oh yeah, I just want to have like the Spartan suit from Halo 3. I just want to have, like I want everyone to be walking tanks. When you realize like you have to carry that all the time, and you're spending a lot more time out of combat than in combat.
And simple things, if you let soldiers buy plate carriers, still make a standard for it. Like, hey, it has to carry this shit, has to fit these plates, has to be multicam, but you can wear whatever you want. You would reduce heat injury. You would increase morale. Like if I could just wear my plate carrier, I mean, I would be significantly lighter, faster, and more lethal.
Yeah.
If
you have what, a JPC at home?
I have a JPC and a Spiritus. I prefer my Spiritus.
Yeah.
But if even if I was, and nobody would stop me if I bought the ice plate and started wearing that because nobody's going to see it. But even if they were like, hey, like ice plates, you should get them. It's a good idea. It'll keep you cool. But they won't say that. They'll be like, if you wear that shit, you're a fucking bitch. Suck it up. Right. And you're like, oh, because I want to. It's the same thing with rain gear or wet weather gear. Oh, it's a monsoon out, and the army gave you this gear to protect you from getting wet. If you wear it, you're a fucking bitch. Like, what's the point of me carrying it then?
So fucking stupid.
I remember a long time ago, like I heard the saying "smarter, not harder," and like I just kept it with me the whole time. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Like, smarter, not harder seems like the way to go.
Yeah.
Like and it was just like a simple bandwidth calculation, right? The less of my bandwidth that I can spend on my own comfort, misery, suffering, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? The more bandwidth I have available to deal with threats and staying alive. And that just seemed like good math to me.
It is. I don't know. I never understood it. And then you have people like yourself that are making these innovating products that can reduce injury and increase performance. And like you said, there's the good old boys club that's like, that'll never work. I know more than your company about your product. It'll never work.
Right?
Yeah, like, oh yes, I know more than a Stanford researcher.
Well, my favorite part now is that we don't really get those guys anymore because our commercial portfolio, like essentially, it's just like, oh, well, that's never going to work. Oh, well, yeah, maybe. But I guess if that's the case, then all of these Fortune 1000 companies must not have any idea what they're doing. So yeah, maybe you're right, Sergeant Major, but these guys all use it. They haven't had any problems. Oh, well, that's not the same thing. What do you guys have, like one location out there? No, a little more than that. So that's helped to silence the critics a little bit on that good. Front.
Yeah, you guys grew, and you're doing really well. So that's
cool. Well, thank you. Yeah.
So you come out with the ice plate. You do this presentation for TRADOC. What happens next?
Yes.
We had a kind of like an after action, did a little debrief with the guys, and they were like, well, okay, that was awesome. You guys did a great job. So now we'll have to generate a requirement for this in order to generate a contract. And we're like, what's a requirement and what does generate we don't even know what the hell that means, right? And they were like, oh, well, the government can't buy anything unless the end users identify a requirement for something. And so since this is new, we'll have to generate all of that from scratch. And we're like, okay, great. So what, a month? Because JD and I come from the private sector, right?
Negative.
And And I came from a much smaller government organization, right, a municipal organization. So we were able to buy stuff actually quite quickly. It wasn't super hard, especially my team. And they were like, a month, like, you want us to call you in a month? They're like, no, this will take like 5 to 7 years. And we were like, I'm sorry,
What?
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
And they're like,
Government.
well, even
Go-
5 years would actually be quite fast for generating a brand new requirement from scratch. And we were like, you motherfuckers asked us to like build this shit and come down here. Like, we put that on a company credit card and we have like, that bill's due next month. And they were like, oh, well, you know what you should do is you should take it to the commercial market. That's really where all of our guys get their stuff anyway. And to be honest, like, that's kind of where we buy stuff now. They call it COTS. And I'm like, what the fuck is COTS? And they're like, oh, it stands for commercial off the shelf. It's kind of where we shop nowadays. And I'm like, huh? Like, you guys make, so wait. So we spend $700 billion a year on defense and you guys make the guys buy their own shit?
Yes.
And they were like,
Yes.
yeah, it's fucked up, but that's actually how it
Yep.
works.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh?
They buy their own fucking meals half the time. Where
Yeah.
does all this money go?
Right. And I'm like I worked for a small agency that had like less than 5,000 sworn, and like we didn't have to buy our own bullets. And they're like, oh, we don't make the guys buy their own bullets. And I'm like, you just said they had to buy almost all their own shit. And they're like, well, okay, everything but the bullets. Oh my God.
It is, but the counter to that, they'll say, oh, well, we didn't issue you this, so you better go out and buy it. Then you go out and buy it and use it. And they're like, did the Army fucking give you that? And you're like, no, the Army didn't give me this. That's why I went out and bought it myself.
Yeah, that all sounds about right. So yeah, anyway, that conversation lasts like, 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And we're like, JD and I were like, oh, okay, well, commercial marketer. I flew down there with actually our other partner, Doug. And we're like, okay, this commercial market, I guess we should look at this. Like, and JD came from hedge fund land. I came from, San Diego Sheriff's Department. We had no idea what we were doing, right? And so we're like, what the fuck is the commercial market? Does that just mean like you open an online store? Like, what does that mean? So anyway, we figured it out. And August 1st, 2016. So we did that presentation for TradeHawk in March of 2016. August of 16, we sold our first ice plate. And yeah, so that was 5 years ago last month.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and we've sold quite a bit more than that first 1,000. We thought it was going to take forever. We were like, oh my gosh, we'll be lucky if we sell 1,000 ice plates in a year. And I think we ended up selling that first 1,000 ice plates in a month.
Holy shit.
And we were like, wow, okay, I guess people like this thing.
Yeah.
And it was much less evolved than the current version that we have now. But
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
How heavy is the ice plate?
So empty, the specific weight is 11.46 ounces. And then obviously carries 50 ounces of water. 50 ounces of water weighs, I believe, 3.86 pounds.
You just have these numbers, and I love that.
Well,
It's his job.
here we actually, we kind of do customer service backwards here, or at least backwards by most company standards. Most companies look at customer service as they're like, oh, we'll put the entry level employees on this, but not here. Here, customer service we consider to be the most important task in the company, and so we actually have all of us leadership handle customer service.
Yeah.
So that includes me, Doug, JD, Ian. Basically, you don't get on customer service until you've been here a long time and you have passed a lot of very stringent tests. We're not easy to let get to that point. But so when you are talking to customer service, you're talking to. Yeah, I mean, we have an internal saying that we want to create the customer experience that we want for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so our team does everything else that makes the customer service experience possible. But so it's one of the four of us. If anybody reaches out to us, it's one of the four of us.
Yeah. That's amazing. Kind of reminds me of what T-Rex has. Like the CEO runs all the customer service. What's his name? Kyle,
the true CEO of T-Rex.
The true CEO.
Yeah.
Do you do customer service? You were saying that it was you and a couple others?
Yeah, me, Doug, JD, and Ian. So JD and I are co-founders. Doug's our director of sales, and then Ian's our our government sales specialist, which people are going to laugh at now, but there's more than just the federal government. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, anyway, and Ian's still going through some of his training, but yeah, it's mostly me, Doug, JD. JD will usually handle the back end, and then Doug and I handle the front end. And a lot of people probably don't know that. I think that's the first time I probably have ever talked about it in any type of interview. But yeah, I mean, if you ask our customers, tons of people have my email address because I write back to them personally, probably thousands at this point.
Holy shit. That's amazing.
So that's why I know the number. I've typed it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we know you're on the social media because that's how we friggin' met you.
A lot of people don't know that that's me on social media either, but I guess they
Yeah.
will now.
Yeah, but I think there's something that is really valuable to customers when they see that like the CEO or the co-founder or the owner or whatever title whatever company has for
Mhm.
like the founder or whatever, when they're interacting with the customers and posting and being engaging, I think that adds such a personality and a flavor to a company that I personally look for.
Yeah, me too.
I love seeing like because it lets me know that that person isn't just a businessman that had an idea. That's a businessman who believes in his products and likes what he does or she does to the point where they're going to go
Oh
out and
yeah.
still engage with everybody. I think that's fantastic.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it really means a lot to us. The customer is the be all end all. I mean, without customers, like companies don't exist. And if you don't love serving customers, that's pretty awesome, by the way, Nathan.
Oh,
If
thank
you
you.
don't, if you
Sorry.
don't like love serving your people, like what the fuck are you doing in business? Like, we JD and I always like to, as part of our onboarding process for new team members, we're like, hey, like money is not the reason to join our company, right? Greed is a bad reason, right? It's not what motivates us. Greatness is what motivates us. We want to build great things, achieve greatness for other people, help them achieve greatness, right? We're trying to build great tools that help other people achieve, live their best life, be the best version of them, the greatest version of themselves. And so if that's not your primary motivation, this is just not like the right place for you, right? But if you do that and you honor that mission first, all the money and the compensation stuff will come naturally because you'll be doing right by people, and more people will come to you.
So speaking of people and your people, you posted recently with the COVID vaccine mandate, basically saying "fuck that shit." We're not doing that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we said.
Was that something that even had to be
You put your money where
discussed?
your mouth was.
Yeah.
We discussed, JD and I discussed it, JD, Doug and I discussed it, and I think the conversation lasted maybe 3 minutes. And I mean, maybe. I think it might have actually lasted less than a minute. We communicated, we've been partners, 5 years now, a little over 5 years. And we kind of have like, there's a business partner, ESP. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, right? There, you can communicate certain things just with very few words and body language, and you guys are all on the same page and the same sheet of music, and you know exactly what the others are thinking. This conversation was exactly that. We took one look at this thing, we read the EO, and we were all like, fuck that. Not under any circumstance are we going to comply with that shit. And so JD's like, just to be clear, he's like, my personal perspective is not a fucking chance in hell. And I was like, you don't even need to tell me, JD. Like, there's a 0% chance we're even going to consider this. And so I was like, I will draft something up, and then I'll send it to you later tonight. And so, I mean, he and I were working, through 10:30, 11 that night, working on like, okay, what does this thing say? What do we want to address? And how do we make it unequivocally clear to the fucking government? Absolutely fucking not. We don't care how much money you have or what leverage you think you may or may not have over us. You don't have it, and you're never going to have it. And so do whatever the fuck you want to us, but we're not doing this, and we're not going to make our team members do this.
What was the reaction from your team?
They were, I guess I would sum it up with like, I almost feel like they came to us with the pitchforks. But they were like, fuck yeah, of course, this is the right thing to do. Like our
yeah.
team was super supportive. Like I couldn't ask for the better team. Like we have a great team here. We're very, very grateful for everybody that joins and everybody that's here now. And, they're all here because they cherish freedom. They cherish the Constitution. They love America for what it was founded, and they love that we're here to do our part to defend that and to protect it, and to help make it better, right? We don't just want to like leave things where they are. We want to help make them better. And America is a country that evolves constantly. And that's one of the things that I think probably drives the rest of the world crazy about us. But who gives a fuck? Like, that's why we're so good at what we do, right? We're constantly evolving, changing, shifting, morphing into other new, uncomfortable versions of ourselves. But we shed skin, right? We shed old layers as a country, and we want to help contribute to that effort. And everybody here wants to contribute to that effort. That's why they're here. And I think that's the type of person that we like to attract, that fits in well and that is successful here. So the team was very, very supportive. We don't tell anybody here what the fuck to do with their personal health, and we're never going to. And to hell with any government agency that thinks that they can tell us to do otherwise. Our attitude is, fuck you, we're not doing business with you. Unequivocally, no two ways around it.
Fuck yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. I love that. It's just like more places need to do that. If everywhere needed to do that, it's just like the whole starve the beast aspect. Sorry, I've had a few White Claws, but I'm starting to get a little political here at 5:14 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Fuck yes. I truly think that's like, and this is going to sound like an ad for fucking Qore Performance. Again, we're not fucking sponsored. Justin's just our buddy. We're hanging out. More places need to fucking put their money where their mouth is. Everywhere's clamoring for those government contracts, those military contracts. No one wants to piss off the government. No, fuck it. Piss off the government. People should
this
know.
country was founded on the idea of pissing off the government, right?
Exactly.
Like you're taxing our lumber too much. Well, fuck you. Like, no.
Yeah, like there's a tax on tea. Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. We're going to throw it into the ocean.
And that's and to be very clear, we are not saying we're not going to do business with governments, right? There's guys out there, like I saw the Riverside County Sheriff. We posted this on our feed or on our stories last night. Riverside County Sheriff in California, the Cleburne Sheriff, I think in Arkansas or Alabama. They wrote very clear letters. Their stances are identical to ours. So we will help those guys, whatever they need. We're here for them. If they have an interest or they have a requirement, we're here to back them up.
A map of all the states that are simply just not complying with this order, and it's around half, I think. Last I looked.
Oh, it's more. I think it's like 34 states, half. Right? 38 states.
Yeah. Holy shit! Oh, get fucked.
So
it's just
not even the red states if it's that many. That's incredible.
Do you think, and did you guys even consider, would this harm your government contracts potentially, or potentially lose business with some folks? Or is that?
Oh yeah.
You guys consider that? Have you noticed an impact yet?
Yes, but not in the way that people might think. We did notice an impact, and this was not our intent. I want to be clear before I share this information. We did this because JD and I'll just say the two of us, our hearts are pure in this cause. Okay, you will not meet two people that are more devoted to the Constitution and in both spirit and letter than us. And I'm not saying we're better than anybody else. I'm just saying this is what motivates us. And so our thinking was entirely around, this is not okay. We know what the difference between right and wrong. This is wrong. We will stand up for what's right. And we knew that it was going to have some impact on our business that could potentially be quite negative. But to be honest, like, our faith is always in people. Our faith is in our country, and our faith is in our fellow patriots that think and cherish and love the Constitution. And to be honest, guys, like, they fucking came out of the woodwork from every corner of the country. And I mean that, and countries that are not even the United States. We got emails, DMs, comments. People were blowing us up and been blowing us up still today. Writing us emails, thanking us for taking a stand. And people were just telling us, like, I'm looking for ways to throw money. I'm just going to buy a hat. I'm going to buy whatever the fuck I can find on your website.
I love
and
that.
I want to be very clear. We had no intention of that happening. Yeah. Our intent was, like, we're just going to take the stand. We're probably going to take a hit, and to be clear, like, there's, I think 2 or 3 different vehicles that we have in limbo right now that we're probably going to get, we're probably going to lose them. Right. And they're not a small amount of money. But I would also say that, and I kind of say this like as a encouraging challenge to other businesses, right? our business is reasonably diversified. We have several different revenue streams that are not dependent on the government. You guys probably know because you guys follow our feed, but we have, a safety and device line. We have a lot of other corporate partners. We have lots of other ways that our technology is used in the world. But what I think where we would like to encourage our peers in the industry is to think different, think asymmetrically, think outside the government channels. Like there's tons of companies, and I can't name them because we're under NDA with a lot of them, where we've encouraged them, like, hey, you guys, we should work together on this project or this project over here. They're not military, they're not law enforcement projects, but you guys have something, and together we could really make something that would really help people out. And I can't speak for them. I don't know, what they're thinking, but I can tell you that, we don't have anything today where those partnerships have resulted in something material for the market. So I think we would like to encourage other companies, like, life doesn't have to begin and end at government contracting. Even if you've spent, I'll just use Qore Precision. If you've spent your entire life from your gestational stages till now, just servicing government, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think I'll just call Qore out right now, right? They have said from the beginning, right? Like, they are for those who defend freedom and protect freedom and whatever. Like, well, okay, so what now, right? Was that just lip service, or did you guys really mean it?
Yeah. What does freedom mean to you?
Or how much? What's the price of your integrity, right? Like, what is the price of what you're saying, of your words, right? Of your word, singular. And I don't really know anybody over there, but that's the kind of thing we would like to encourage other companies to think about. Like, you don't have to just live there, right? And the more that you do, the more that you're just dependent on them, and the more vulnerable you are to their leverage. And why do you, like, if you're all about freedom and capability, why do you want to be beholden to one entity? That sucks.
Much less that, and
much less that entity, right? Where the political winds shift all the time.
Yeah, and it's the people are dumb, and it is, again, mob rule, and the mob should not have the ability to strip certain rights from you, any rights from you. That's kind of the definition of the word rights. It shouldn't be able to be taken away from you.
No, and I don't want to just like pick on Qore. I'm just using them as an example because I think everybody knows about them, right? But yeah, so again, we always try to focus on the positive. We don't like to be a company that lives in negative land. We don't like to use fear or manipulation. We don't like to use any negative things in our business at all. So we really want to encourage other companies, not say we don't want, like, we even hate that we had to use the word cancel, in our statement. But we really want to be an encouraging and positive force for, hey, guys, we don't have to all be beholden to them. Let's all band together and say, fuck these guys, right? We stand for freedom. We know what's right. We know the difference between right and wrong, and our word means something, right? When all of us that took an oath and swore that, like, I swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, blah blah blah, like, really mean it. Right? Otherwise, what were you doing?
And I think one of the, like you said, these weren't your intentions at all. This is just kind of the end result of, or the continued result of, what you guys did and what you guys believe is right. I think one of the things that we're seeing slowly start to pick up, and it's kind of like a snowball. For example, your company saying, no, we're not complying. But then you start to look within the military. There was that lieutenant colonel that was like, I'm resigning. I'm not dealing with this shit.
Scholler?
Yep. I'm a year away from retirement, but fuck this. And
fuck, that video was so satisfying to watch. Oh my God.
But there's others that have done it too. He's not the only one. He was the first that I've seen. But since that happening, I've seen 4, maybe 5 other high-ranking officers put in their resignation, being like, no, I don't stand for this. This isn't what I took an oath to, and I'm leaving. And I don't care about the consequences. And I think we're seeing that snowball effect in the military, and we're starting to see that snowball effect now within just the business world. I don't even want to say the
Yeah.
gun industry, because it's not just the gun industry. It's the business
it's
world.
everywhere.
And
It's the business world, yeah.
and Qore Performance doing that is a huge step, because it gives confidence for other businesses to be like, oh, well, if they're not complying, well, I'm not going to be like the outlier. There's less risk in doing it. And being the first to do something that bold is it's bold. And I don't know if you guys were the first ones to do it or not. You're just the first ones that we've seen do it. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. Regardless, within the industry, the gun industry itself, I think you guys are amongst the first to put out that statement. I know T-Rex was.
You were the first one that I saw.
Yeah.
At least. Like,
We're still the only ones that I've seen do an official statement. A lot of guys that are, patriotic, like we are Lead Devil, Warrior Poet, I think they commented on our post.
Mhm.
They're in, I haven't seen, and my phone all weekend was blowing up from around the industry, like, and I'm not going to mention any names, but guys all over the place from companies that we all know and love, saying like, all of us here are personally behind you guys 100%. We have no idea where ownership leadership is going to have us land, but no, we're behind you guys. And we wish that we could just jump right in there and get it. But, and I got all kinds of other messages saying like, hey, we have a meeting, we have a leadership meeting at this time, or an ownership meeting. We're discussing it, whatever. So I think that it got the conversation going, at least from what I could see from, the visibility, what limited visibility I have. So hopefully that's a positive thing. And, one of the other things that I remember JD had mentioned during our conversation just that night, after the announcement was made, is one of the things that was really important to him, and was important to me too, but he said it first, was he's like, we really need to let everybody out there know they're not alone. We have, like, somebody has to take the lead and say like, hey, you're not alone, and we're not big, but at least somebody's got your back, and we may burn the fucking house down, or they may burn our house down, but at least somebody's got your back.
yeah. Someone has to stand up first.
Somebody has to stand up first. And he said that, and we said, yeah, that's going to be us.
Well, and I think one of the, additional pros to you guys kind of working industry ass backwards when it comes to how your company runs is that you guys can see something and instantly just be like, oh yeah, we don't need to have a leadership discussion later. We can just fucking say whatever we want because we run this shit, and we're going to be in touch.
I love that.
We're in touch with it. And that by itself, like I said, has many pros. It's so valuable. But I do think, because there are some other companies that have publicly talked, but not necessarily put out a statement. I know T-Rex Arms was like, I want to hire 100 employees just so I can not comply with it. I thought that was pretty funny.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
based Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what Kyle? I saw it on
No,
Lucas's stories or
it
something.
was Lucas,
yeah, it was
but
good.
we all know Lucas
Yeah.
is just a puppet for Kyle.
Yeah,
Kyle actually
runs
on
it.
space.
Kyle runs it.
Yeah,
But
It was really good. That was a great response.
yeah,
it was. Yeah,
and
I enjoyed that quite a bit.
I think just getting that ball rolling and that snowball effect,
Yeah.
and we're seeing it more more than just the business world, more than just the gun industry, more than just the military. I mean, we were just talking about all the states that are like, nah, fuck that. Like it's really something that is taking root. And while I do think the core value behind it is so good,
Core value.
Qore Performance, one of the downsides, and this isn't even the fault of doing it because you're doing the right thing. One of the downsides, I think, is the increased division that this causes. But it's division for people believing and standing up for what they think is right. It is.
Yeah, we don't love the division, but it was an inevitable side effect, and we kind of viewed it as just like, they're already dividing us.
Exactly.
The question is whether or not we're going to defend ourselves.
It gets really hairy, and it's something that I'm sure you wish. I certainly wish that we didn't have to come to the point where we're like, no, we're not making our people get a vaccine. Like that sounds so ridiculous that even has to be said. And whether you're pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine, whatever it is, you can be that. But when you start forcing people to undergo medical treatment, or even if you don't want to call it medical treatment, whatever you want to call it, you're forcing people to get something injected into their body
against their will. Yeah,
that's the problem. It's not whether the
Well,
vaccine works
yeah.
or not. The problem is you're forcing people to get something
Yeah.
injected into them.
It's
Right,
mob
so
rule. It's fucking mob rule. It's the idea
Yeah.
that, like, regardless of whether it works, it could have 99.999% efficiency. You're still forcing someone to do something that they don't want to do. Because
Mhm.
51% of the population says that you have to do something and 49% don't. And then everyone's going to come along being like, oh, well, you know, it's actively hurting someone. You're actively hurting someone. It's like, what? You can still get the virus. You can still carry the virus. You can still give the virus to people. But
Right.
it's you're less transmissible. So is that the fucking is that the bar now? Are we going to force everyone to get the yearly flu shot because people who are old and immunocompromised and obese die of the flu a lot more readily than others? What is the bar where people will say, "Oh, it's all right to force people to do what they don't want to fucking do"? Ugh.
Well, we were very clear in our statement, and we got a lot of messages and questions
Yeah.
about this, right? There are like people asking us, are you pro, anti-vax? We don't care. That
doesn't
was
matter.
never the point. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, right? Like our position was, we have no position on the vaccine.
Yeah.
Our position is about freedom for individual choice. And what is clearly outlined in the Bill of Rights, right? Unreasonable search and seizure and cruel and unusual punishment, right? And I'm sure there's going to be some lawyers or people that want to like share their opinion on like whether this qualifies or doesn't qualify. We view this as like
No, don't worry about
it's not a vaccine or a pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine debate. Our company has no position on the vaccine. We have a position on individual freedom and the right of individuals to make their own choices about their health, and the government's lack of a right to compel people to do that. We feel that it is very clearly enshrined in the Bill of Rights, and that this is a clear violation, a clear constitutional violation. And that's it, right? It has nothing to do with the vaccine itself. It has everything to do with what we perceive to be tyrannical government overreach.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I don't care if anyone gets the vaccine or not. People are informed adults and they have the right to make that decision based on the information that they're presented, whether they get it or they don't get it.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
being said, it's the idea of one, being forced, and two, the bar for being forced to do this invasive medical procedure is so low. It turned very quickly, and I saw a meme about this earlier. It turned from 2 weeks to stop the spread to 500 days until you have to get the shot or you can't feed your family. And that is way too true and way too relatable, I think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. They're moving the bar. They're moving the goalposts.
And like you said, it's not a matter of pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. It's a matter of you make your own choices. And I mean, personally, for me, when the vaccine initially came out, I have my own healthcare because military healthcare fucking blows. And I was talking with my doctor about it, and I'm like, hey, like, do I need the vaccine? And he was like, you're a young, healthy man. Like, you'll be like, he was one of those people like, you don't really know. I'm like, okay, well, cool. I'm not going to get it. And then, a couple months went by and I was talking to him again. He's like, there's not really any harm in you getting it. If you want to get it, you can. And because I was having a kid, I did end up getting the vaccine. I mean, I feel fine, but just like you shouldn't shit on people for not getting the vaccine on one side. I mean, if you get the vaccine, if you're making your own choice, that's fine. And I think that's the whole point, and something that gets lost in translation, where if you're like, fuck no, we're not complying with this, people automatically on the left are like, oh, so you're anti-science, you're anti-vaccine? Well, maybe we have those thoughts, but that has nothing to do with it, like personal choice and between you and your medical professional. It comes down to the choice. Do I want to do this? Do I have to do this? Does my doctor suggest it? I mean, there's so many different things that go into it. It's not just, oh, you're not complying, so you're a Trump flag waving piece of shit conservative that's uneducated. Like, no, that's not it at all.
Like, oh no, you're going to go insurrect some buildings, you fucking Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think here, like, I think half our team is vaccinated and half our team is not. And we encourage both. We're just like, as long as it's your choice.
Yeah, it's your choice.
Do
Make
whatever you want,
an
man.
informed decision based on.
Yeah.
Don't let politics dictate what you do.
Yep.
If you want to do it, go do it. If you don't, I'll never tell someone not to get vaccinated. I'll never tell anyone to do anything. It's their choice, and they should make informed decisions based on the information that they have.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's all it is. All we want to do is just encourage people to be able to have the freedom to think and act for themselves. And that's it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is instead of talking to doctors and like people who are, and some doctors are influenced by politics, obviously, but instead of talking to like a doctor and trying to get an unbiased medical professional opinion on whether or not you should get this vaccine or any, not even the vaccine, just any medical care or treatment, what we're seeing people do is listen to government officials who aren't medical professionals. And people are like, well, Dr. Fauci was the highest paid member of government. Sure, he might have been a doctor at one point. Sure, he might have been a very unbiased, or I don't even know the history of him. You know, I'm just saying this just hypothetically. At the moment, he is a politician. I don't care if he was a doctor.
Absolutely.
He is a politician. So when he says, no, get the vaccine, I'm a doctor, trust the science, I don't fucking trust that man. I don't trust anything he fucking says because he is the highest paid member of government. That's not a government. That's not a doctor. That's a politician. That is a political position at that point.
Yeah. I remember, and then we're going back to, you know, tables that the government uses, tables that you know, government healthcare uses. For example, you know, I'm on a bit of a little fitness journey of, you know, trying to get my 6.5 minute mile down to 6 minutes, and then all of that stuff. And, you know, I was speaking with a friend, and she goes, oh, well, I don't see why you're doing that. And I go, well, you know, to get fitter. And she goes, oh, well, you know, you're in shape already. And I go, how? And she goes, well, you're the ideal male size. And then she sends me a link to something saying that the ideal male size, according to doctors and according to, you know, the government, is 35 inch waist for a man and 40-inch waist for a woman. It's like, in what world is that ideal? In what world is that healthy? In what world who are these doctors, and why are they dictating what is the healthiest and most ideal shape? Who are these people? I honestly think, and this is kind of getting into, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here. This has nothing to do with Qore Performance or the vaccine or anything else. I think that this strange and kind of insidious acceptance of unhealthiness is part of the reason that the pandemic is hitting people as hard as it is.
Well, I don't want to. We've been in a fat shaming group chat for the last couple of days, and it's been so.
It's just you and me. You can't even call it a group chat. It's you, me, and BR hates feds, which I just love saying that word. BR hates feds. BR hates feds.
I don't want to get into the fat shaming conversation, but I will say,
yes. No. It's people have a right to do whatever they want. I'm not going to fat shame. I'm not going to otherwise. But there is a distinct correlation between both what is considered acceptable and what is by doctors, by the government, considered healthy, and by what is tangibly killing people. There is a correlation.
It is very strange that if you go to any like private doctor, like family doctor, and you ask them, hey, like, and you're an overweight person, hey, should I eat healthier and exercise? They're going to say yes. I mean, they'll tell me I need to eat healthy and exercise because that's just a healthy thing to do. It boosts your immune system. It's good for you. It's preventing heart disease. It's all these things. But for some reason, when it comes to COVID, the same people, for the most part, I'm generalizing, but the same people that are saying follow the science, the vaccine is good, Dr. Fauci, the highest paid government official, is saying that it's good, trust the science, are also not trusting and following just the common knowledge of, well, just be a healthy person. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be an Olympic sprinter or runner. Just take care of yourself physically.
Minimum bit of,
you'll reduce that risk.
That minimum bit of self-care.
Yep.
It's like,
sorry, we're ranting.
By the way, good on you, Nathan. If you're taking your mile from 6.5 to 6 minutes, that's solid.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
he's been on a journey.
I appreciate it.
He was at 7:45 a couple months ago.
Yeah, Mitch has been following me since I was like an 8 minute mile. It's I really let myself go during the lockdown because like we weren't allowed to go outside. There were no gyms. We weren't allowed to go run. We weren't allowed to go to the
You weren't
park. We
allowed to
weren't anything.
run?
So I just like sat at home. Well, we weren't allowed to go to the park, and that's where I run. I guess I could have ran around the area, but and I'm making excuses here, and I'm going to be the first to admit that. But like during the winter here, it kind of sucks to run.
Yeah.
I live in Canada. It's in some of Canada it's okay, but the rest of it's like you go outside for a jog, there's a pretty decent chance you're going to die. That being said, you should still try it, and I could have done a lot more. I genuinely could have done a lot more towards my physical fitness than I did. So I just sat at home during the quote quarantine unquote, where everything was illegal and nothing was open, like groceries were limited capacity, so and so, and I just ate takeout and I ate like shit, and I did no
Oh,
physical activity, and my cardio went to shit, my weightlifting went to shit, everything went to shit.
shit. Yeah.
So when I started up again, it's like I went and I ran an 8 minute mile, and it was terrible, and like it took me like 27 minutes to run 3 miles straight, and it was awful. I'm down to 6:25 right now, I think, but
That's
like
solid.
thank you. It's a slow
Yeah,
process getting better,
it
but
is.
yeah.
So, Core Performance, the first month of when we didn't know a lot about COVID and it was coming out, what did it look like at Core Performance in the building?
That's a great question. So that first week, I think that was March, right, of
Yeah,
2020
it was
or
like February, March
um,
timeline, I think.
February, March time. Yeah. So we had just moved into our what it was at the time our new facility, right, which we're in right now, and we didn't really know what to expect. So as it started to get a little bit more intense, so I think towards the end of March or something like that, I don't remember the exact dates, but JD and I decided to close the office. Kind of when everybody went on lockdown, right? We were like, okay, I guess we should do this. And that was like a Monday or Tuesday, if I remember. And by Thursday, the whole team was going stir crazy. And we were just like, well, and JD, who one thing that I'll say before I say this is like one thing that I've learned great from JD. I've learned a lot of great things from him over the years, but primary source research. When you do research, only study primary sources. Massively important, and it's important for the story because he is a maverick at doing all this kind of thing. And so he read through a bunch of primary source material, and he was just like, and this is late March of 2020, so this is a super hot take even then, or especially then. And he was just like, I don't think this thing is that bad. So like, and I'm going crazy here at home. How are you? And I was like, I kind of concluded the same thing. I don't think it's that bad. I'm going crazy here. Let's just go back. Like we have a huge office and not that many of us. And so we did. So like that next Monday, we were all back here. And then I think maybe the week after that or 2 weeks after that, we got an email from the White House asking us to be on a conference call with the president and Secretary Mnuchin. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And we were like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like we got that's a pretty neat invitation. So we did, and that call was just about like, hey, you whatever 10,000 people on this conference call with the president and the secretary of the treasury. You guys represent essential critical infrastructure businesses related to incident response or national defense or however they phrased it. I don't remember because we weren't allowed to record the call. We need you to stay open. We need you guys to keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it. Blah blah blah. And so we were from that point forward, we were just like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's on. Let's get it done. And then our sales from the time that we had closed the office the previous Monday till that call were almost zero. Like we were just like, holy shit, are we going to go out of business? Like, is this the end? And then right around the time of the call with the president, things just got crazy, and they have not stopped since. It was just gangbusters.
It is a good time to, I think, be in the tactical gear industry. It's a very good time. I mean,
Yeah,
not for the greatest reasons, but
that part of our business definitely blew up, but our safety business really exploded around that time, because restaurants were having to convert to drive-throughs, and our existing drive-through customers were now 100% dependent on the drive-throughs themselves. So basically, everybody was having to plus up on their drive-through capability, and they would all look to the market leader. The market leaders happen to be our customers, and so we just started getting calls from all corners of the food service and what they call the QSR space, the quick serve restaurant space.
That's amazing.
It was pretty fun. Yeah. So
you're on the conference call with the president. That was Donald Trump at the time, correct?
it was, yes.
And they were basically saying, "Hey, stay open. We need critical infrastructure."
Yeah, basically, if you're on this call, we have identified you as being important, as being what they called, I think, national critical infrastructure or something like that.
Holy shit.
And we were like, how the fuck do they know about us?
That one trade-off
yeah,
presentation.
I guess so. Like and they told us how many people were on that call, and I want to say it was like 8 or 10,000 small business, CEOs. It was specifically a small business startup call. We were not on the same call as Tim Cook, obviously, but yeah. So that was, or Elon. So yeah, that was kind of how it went. And they were just like, whatever, you're on this call because you do something that we need right now as a nation. So we need you to stay open. And we were just like, Roger that, sir. Like, we didn't get to talk to him, obviously. We were just kind of listening. I think it was more like a confined one-way podcast than it was a conference call. I think they just called it a conference call. But yeah, so it was game on. And then like our website lit up pretty much right around that same time. And we only had, I think, 4 people back then, and we were just working like 14, 15 hours a day, and all of us were packing boxes, building product. I mean, we were all doing everything.
Holy shit.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. It's good you guys are diversified, though. Genuinely.
We think so.
So, unrelated to COVID, because I feel like everybody's always talking about COVID, I want to talk about business stuff because I'm always interested in picking the brains of business owners or people that just work in general.
Yeah, me too.
What would you say is the most challenging part about being in the position that you are at Qore Performance?
The most challenging part of the position I'm in, being a great leader and manager to take care of our people, recruiting the right people. It's everything around managing the house, right? So it comes from taking care of our people, being the right leader, the right manager at the right time, being able to identify, what the team needs, and then being able to bring on the right team members, because we've been in a continual hiring mode pretty much since that month when we had the call with the president. And we have, I think, 18 or 20 something open positions right now, maybe a little bit more.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How many employees do you guys have anyway? Out of curiosity.
I'll be honest, this is kind of embarrassing. No. So you just in the same podcast where you praised me for knowing all the numbers about my product, I don't actually have an exact head count. I want to say we have somewhere between 14 and 18 or something like that, I think. We kind of, the company is kind of front of the house, back of the house. I run the front of the house. JD runs the back of the house. So the front of the house is like design, marketing, sales, and customer facing operations. And then the back of the house is finance, production, manufacturing operations, quality control, and fulfillment. And JD runs that. So that's where most of our team members are. We've had a little bit of fluctuation and turnover lately. So I think our number is right in that range. Yeah, I think the most challenging part is we've built a very fun but trust-based culture here. It's intense. Like we run hard, we run fast. We move quickly, we break a lot of shit around here in an effort to always push the envelope. But in doing so, our growth rate has well exceeded our ability to hire. We probably need about 40 or 50 people. So our team of just less than 20 is doing, way more work than we really have the capacity to do. So we need to look for ways to bring in new team members, and that's hard. That's challenging. I think that's probably one of the hardest things in my position, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you're so deeply connected to it, not just from the founding, but still to this day, you don't want to bring in any random fuck ass that could potentially, taint your name. Like you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're bringing in good quality people that have the same core values that you do, and you want to make sure that you're bringing in good valuable people that are worth paying and investing in. So I definitely get that.
Yeah, and the trust of the team is huge. Like, one of the things that we like to really encourage and reinforce here is like the only way that the company works, right, is all of us are trusting in everybody else on the team to do their jobs and to do them really well, to do them exceptionally. And we can't, one of the things that I'm always afraid of making a mistake, as a leader, is bringing in people that violate the sanctity of that trust environment. If I do that, I feel I've really let my team down. I feel like I've failed them as a leader if I bring in somebody that they can't trust. So I think that's actually one of the things that probably keeps me up, is this recruit the right person? Are they, is the team going to like them? Is the team going to trust them? Are they going to get along well? Is the chemistry going to work? Because I think bringing the team more talent to help them in their, in our mission is like one of the most important things to me. I don't want to ruin what everybody here has worked so hard to achieve.
On the contrary to that, what is the best part about being in your position?
There's a lot of them. Like, I think the talking with the customers is definitely towards the top. I love that our as a civilization, we have created tools that allow companies and their customers to have conversations, not just like every now and again, but regularly. So I think that's pretty amazing. I love the creative aspect. The creative aspect of both marketing and design is super fun. Um, and also the privilege to be able to to work on our team and to participate, to be part of what we have here is really, really fun. I mean, we have a great time. I showed you guys before the podcast, right? We have Nerf guns hanging on our wall, so
Yep, yep, yep.
we get to do a lot of fun stuff. And I think that our company in particular is really fun because we're exposed to so many different, really fun things to do. And I feel like I keep using the word fun, but we get to visit, we get to do work with military professionals, law enforcement professionals, occasionally fire and EMS. We get to do a little work in CrossFit and the tactical games. We get to go to classes. We get to go visit drive-throughs all around the country and taste great coffee and
That's
great
awesome.
great chicken sandwiches and
That sounds like the best
all
part.
kinds of neat stuff. And we get to work with companies like FedEx and Valvoline, all kinds of neat things, wineries that we help with their teams, and the exposure to all of these cool parts of life and these cool companies, these cool professions is just so it's so stimulating, and it's so much fun to be around other people that take their trades and their crafts so seriously. It's really awesome, especially like on our safety side. I mean, we get to work with Apple, and just getting to see underneath the hood there, the way that we do and the stuff that they help us out with. We just get to see a whole part of the world that we would never be able to have access to without the doors that this business opens up for us. It's really cool.
So we're definitely not on the same level of business that you guys are, but that's probably one of the most rewarding things for us with this podcast too. Is we get to talk with people like you. We see a company that we like, or a person that we like, or a brand that we like, and we have the ability to reach out and be like, hey, like, you should come on the podcast and talk. And I'll admit, it is completely selfish intentions. Anytime we have somebody on this podcast, it's never like, oh, we're gonna have Qore Performance on, that's gonna be good cross promotion. It's always like, oh, hey, we've been talking to Justin from Qore Performance for a while. I actually want to like talk to him. Like, I want to like pick his brain. And I think that is probably one of the most rewarding aspects for us, and I kind of relate that to what you were just saying, like the connections you get to make, you get to see how, like you were saying with Apple, like you get to see what's going on over at Apple, like even if it's like a small glimpse, like it's still super cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
It's
Yeah.
super neat.
We've never done stuff for the cross promotion. We've never done stuff for anything. We've brought people on here with like 20 followers and like a private profile just because they have interesting shit to say. None of that stuff matters. What matters is how interesting and how insightful everything is. That's always how it's been. It's always how it will be.
Yeah, I think when you're running a business that way, it just makes it less about, I mean, obviously there's still work, but it makes it less work, still being work, less work, more fun. And you get that good balance going. And you're like, oh, wow, like I'm legitimately excited to go to work because now I get to see what's going on over at Apple, or now I get to see like how a winery works, like completely random thing. But like, it's so interesting because it's not something that you would get to experience otherwise and have that engagement and interaction with people otherwise. And I just related that back to us because I think it's similar in the sense, less on the business side for us, more on the business side for you, but it's still, I'm glad that you said something like that because it is very valuable for me personally. Like I said, this podcast is completely selfish. I don't give a fuck if people listen. No offense, guys.
No offense.
Yeah,
No offense.
I'm just happy I get to I'm like, oh, like cool. I'm learning about Qore Performance.
This if we had 10 listeners. I would do this if we had one listener and it was me. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Mitch, because I do think that actually the people are one of my favorite parts of this business. Like, just getting to hang out with you guys and have this chat, like all the, the DMs and the chats that we've had before, like that to me, that's really fun. Being able to make the other personal connections that this business affords is so awesome. I think maybe you might answer differently if you're an introvert. I happen to be an extrovert, so maybe I like it disproportionately. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But the people are really a great aspect to it.
It is so fun. And that's why we were talking with Roy from Weapons Outfitters about SHOT Show. I've never been. Nathan's never been.
I want to. I want to go there. Just like now we're our own LLC. We just be like, hey, we're Seaburn Art. Fucking, hi. We don't have a table, but I guess we're here as media. I don't know.
Yeah, it would just be cool to see people in person and get to interact with people in person.
It would. I want to hang out with. I don't know. I just want to do the SHOT Show experience once. And I don't mean the SHOT Show experience like getting chlamydia from a gun buddy. I mean like hang out with everyone.
Do you guys go to SHOT Show?
Yeah, we do have a booth at SHOT Show this year. I think this will be the first year we've ever had an official booth because we were on the waiting list for like 2 years or something like that. And SHOT Show we've done a suite before, I think, where you do the meetings and the scheduling and all that stuff upstairs. So yeah, it's cool. It's fun. It's overwhelming, but like it's cool once or twice.
That's what everybody says.
We're just talking about inside, in the office today, how we're really hoping. We've been wanting SHOT Show to relocate to Orlando really since we started the company.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? I just want to, guys, I want to go to SHOT Show. I want to get really drunk with like, I don't know, Weapon Outfitters, fucking Brenner. I don't care. And then just like leave SHOT Show super blasted and go ride Space Mountain in Disney World.
Yeah.
Like I know Disney World fucking consumer fucking Disney, like consume product, get excited for next product. I don't give a fuck. I love Space Mountain. That's something they'll never fucking take from me.
Well, what you're saying is similar to what everybody we've kind of talked to says. It's cool to once or twice, and then it just turns into like this fucking man drama thing, which I completely understand and I get. I wouldn't go, and I don't want to go for like the networking.
Well, Mitch, I will go as Seaburn Art.
No. I want to go. I don't want to go as like the cross network fucking promotion. Like, like I'm gonna see all this cool stuff. I don't give a fuck about that. I give a fuck about everybody that we already kind of talked to being consolidated in one area and getting to like meet them in
100%.
person, kind of like how we do with the podcast, except in person.
Yeah,
that would be fucking dope. Sorry to cut you off, Justin, as you were saying.
No, that's that you've identified our the only part I think we actually like about SHOT Show, which is getting to see all of our friends.
Yeah.
You don't get, we don't, because of the nature of our business and how it's structured, we don't get much business done there. It's just kind of like some people get to see our products for the first time, and that's kind of about it. And then we get to, hang out with everybody. But that's like what I actually prefer classes and smaller events way more. And I'm just speaking for myself personally. I prefer um, less intense, smaller, but much higher quality interactions, like and spending time with my friends that way. I don't love the like massive chaos where your conversation is interrupted every 10 seconds because people are walking by in the aisle and you just kind of happen to run into somebody that you know. That happens all the time at SHOT, and I never actually get to like really spend quality time with the people that I care to spend quality time with. So I wouldn't mind seeing SHOT Show morph into something where we had 4 smaller events all year, as opposed to one massive event. We've kind of really enjoyed the more boutique trade show trend that we've started to see pop up.
That's really good to hear, because similar to what you're saying, we've never been. We've only heard from everybody that's like the same. This literally the same thing you said. It's cool the first or second year, and then after that, it's like
Yeah.
and it completely makes sense, because you have so many big egos with so many big companies that are trying to get a leg up on one another. So many, you have your competition there, but you're also like, oh, I got to put on a friendly face so I don't seem like a dick. But then there's some people that
Yeah.
are like, I don't give a fuck if I seem like a dick. That smaller venue, I think, would be really cool if you were running it, because you get to control who's coming in and who's coming out. So you could be like, oh, I really like these 4 or 5 other companies and their people and what they stand for. Let's only do something with those 4 or 5 companies. And I think something like that
Yep.
would be
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Well, we're hoping that in our new facility that we'll move into when you guys come visit, we're hoping to be able to do more things like that in our new facility where we can host smaller gatherings, and spend more quality time with people. One of the things that I've noticed at SHOT Show is there's a lot of people there that have genuine questions, and they don't have the same opportunities that maybe other people do to get FaceTime or like we're doing right now, and kind of spending time together on a VTC or whatever. And but they have genuine questions. They're really seeking advice from people that in theory know what they're doing. We hate the term experts, because we think it like comes from school and all of this like bullshit about believing that you have to fucking go to school forever to actually like have a career and have a job. And we have found that to not be the case. So we try to not use the term expert, but like they're looking, for advice and guidance from people that have a little bit more experience than they do, or, happen to have a lot of knowledge about one particular subject matter that they have an interest in. And we would really like to be able to spend time with those people, answer the questions that they have, and be able to help them further their own personal knowledge base, and not have to just brush them off quickly. Not that we would brush people off, but like not have them get overwhelmed by a mob of people because we're at a trade show and there's like 50 other people waiting, and there's only 2 or 3 or 4 of us at the booth.
Yeah, and it makes those engagements less personable, because you see a line or you're in a line and it's like, how much quality am I actually getting out of this conversation with somebody if they know? And I don't think it's any fault um, of the person in the booth or the person in line. I think it's more of just a circumstance in the situation where there's so many people with so many different agendas that go to these events, and they don't always all line up. So I think, like you were saying, if you wanted to do that at your new facility, I think that would be awesome, because you control the inflow of people. You're like, oh, I'm actually genuinely interested in this person. I don't have to actually pretend to be interested in this person because they just happen to be here at this event, and we have FaceTime. And
Yeah, that's exactly right. And and we all know, I think there's been so many new people, first time gun owners, since 2020, right, alerted to whether it's civil unrest or whatever, concerned about being able to protect their family. And they maybe, don't have the training and the, field experience that some of us do, and they have questions, and I want to be able to answer those questions for the person. And I think it's really, really important for us as a nation, and maybe even as a civilization, that we welcome those people with open arms, really help them get acquainted, because we can turn them into more of us. And by more of us, I mean, like, maybe they just haven't had exposure to, what it really means to defend the Constitution, what it really means to be able to lose your freedom. They haven't maybe seen what we've seen. They haven't seen freedom get taken away, but we have a chance to share those experiences with them, and then they can make a decision for themselves whether they want to continue to equip and educate themselves, and further their knowledge and their skill set. And I want more of us to be there for those people, if that makes sense, and to be able to provide them quality experiences that encourage them, not discourage them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I don't think you're the only person. I mean, I know you're not the only person, because we spoke to some other people that have similar interests, and similar ideas. I think that smaller audience is kind of something that's a more popular idea that is growing within the community, that I think is going to have a much larger impact in the industry as a whole, as opposed to SHOT Show being one giant event with a whole bunch of different
Yep.
people like we were talking about. And that's not to say anything bad about SHOT Show. I've never been, but I can see the problems that SHOT Show causes within the industry
Yep.
more than the problems they solve.
Well, I think that, for a group of people, a community that is, so concerned with the tyrannical power overreach, or the tyrannical overreach of the power elite, we have a really bad habit of creating elitism within our own ranks. And I think we need to do more to address that, because elitism does not welcome in new people. Elitism is exactly what it sounds like. It's exclusionary. And like, that's exactly the opposite of the spirit of America, right? We're a country founded by immigrants, like, and strangers, essentially. So if we're going to not be hypocrites, we should be welcoming new blood and not shunning it away. Like, I think that's kind of hypocritical.
Yeah, I agree, and that's just it. It's not just in the military where you see the good old boys club. It's happening everywhere. It's happening almost within the industry as well, where
Oh yeah,
like, you're not super popular X, Y, and Z influencer. Well, I'm not going to trust your opinion because what you're saying has no value. When really
right,
somebody could just be trying to start out and have all this knowledge and value, but they're not getting the audience because they're not super cool, popular person already. And it's the same
right.
thing within industry and business, where starting a business in such community where everybody is so critical of each other, which is a good thing. I think being critical and being nitpicky is good to help people improve, but it also creates this culture where you almost aren't open-minded to newer people with newer
Yep.
ideas.
I think that's exactly right. The constructive criticism is very beneficial. But tearing people down is never beneficial, and to tear people down, you have to be below them to begin with. I remember my pastor from many years ago in San Diego said that. It always stuck with me. And, but also I think as a company, we really prefer building people up, and being a positive force rather than, focusing on negative things. And I think it's easy to get kind of caught up in those negative things, like, the popularity contests that we see and whatnot.
Yeah. I need to put a vert grip on this fucking
Do you have
thing.
a red dot on that thing?
Yeah, I got a Aimpoint T2. It's
That's
like
sick as
not
fuck.
a. Thank you. It's a matter on the handguard because there's no rail back here, but whatever.
It's funny. I didn't want to sound like a douche saying, like, is that an aim point? Because I was like, there's no way he put a real aim point on a Nerf.
Oh, it's not a real aim point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a $60 one that I just had kicking around.
That's cool.
Yeah. No, I really like aim point, but no, I'm not going to put an aim point on a Nerf gun. I've got better places to put it.
I can hear you filing your nails though, or whatever you're filing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm working on a dovetail.
This is.
I've been working with my hands basically the entire thing.
Justin, this happens towards the end of every episode. Nathan gets progressively drunk, and then he'll just start dry firing sometimes, and you just hear random clicks.
Now that would be fucking amazing.
I mean, like,
I would tell him to do it, except it ruins the fucking audio. Like I don't know, I don't know what it does. Maybe the metallic clang or whatever, but it picks up on the mic and it
like
just
the sound of
yeah, it just fucks with everything.
Yeah, it does. So I no longer dry fire,
Yeah.
but except this one time. Sorry, or sorry, whoever has to listen because probably won't cut this out because it's.
I'll cut it out. I pay him pretty good. We just gave him a raise, so he's all right.
I mean, he doesn't have to. It's just kind of a look into how retarded I am. But
fair. Justin, where do you see Qore Performance in 10 years?
10 years, I see us as being the top player and in a new industry that we believe we've created, and that is human performance and thermoregulation. We like to say we're the bridge between man and machine, and that is, we do thermoregulation for more than just humans. We do it for devices as well. I think I mentioned earlier that we work with Apple, and in 10 years, I see us being able to address the full gamut of thermoregulation and performance enhancement. And what I mean by that is, I'll use an analogy that I think a lot of people could relate to. Our strategic plan has us very much looking a lot like Tesla. And what I mean by that is we spent the first 5 years of our business building the battery, right? And really the first 3 years we spent building the battery. And the battery is the ice plate. Ice block also, which powers our ice case that cools iPads. So we spent the first few years building the battery infrastructure and the battery technology itself. And now that we have a basic battery, I would say that at this point in our evolution, we're kind of like at the 70 kilowatt hour for Tesla equivalent. So now our job is to build out the 100 kilowatt hour and greater. And so we're going to, the market's going to see the ice plate and ice block lines expand into a lot of different shapes and sizes and capabilities. So that's kind of phase one. Phase two is us sort of working on the chassis, right? So Tesla first worked on a Lotus, a rebranded, reworked Lotus. And then from there, they went to the Model S, and then they developed more bodies after that, the X, then the 3, the Y, the Cybertruck. So for us, this phase two is working on the holster, what we call the holster platforms. And that's our safety vest, ice plate exo, the IMS line of MOLLE sleeves, various ways to carry for humans to be able to carry and use our technology in different expeditionary profile and work profiles. We're working on, we're going to release our EDC travel sling tomorrow. That's also part of it.
It's so nice.
Thank you. It uses, ice vents and ice cap technology. By the end of the year, we'll be releasing an ice plate backpack that combines all of our technologies into a single platform. And it's going to have some new technologies onto it that are we're really excited about. So that's the second phase, the holster phase. The third phase is the supercharger network, or what we would classify as infrastructure. I'm not really going to go into the details of our strategy on the infrastructure phase, but suffice it to say, we have a very mature, very detailed plan for how we're going to build that infrastructure out. And we're very, very excited to be able to share it with people over the years. So in 10 years, we see that infrastructure being built out.
And that's just it, though. You don't really have a competition as far as I can see. Like, I've tried to find, maybe it exists and you know about it because you're more plugged into it, but just in my brief search, there is no competition for what you're doing.
I think that's a very accurate observation, Mitch. And we have companies that compete with us, what I would call only semi-tangentially or in kind of an oblique fashion. Right, we have the Camelbacks of the world, the hydration companies, right? So we kind of have delved into this somewhat deeply here. We have hydration companies, so Camelback, Nalgene, some of them Source we're even partners with. We do a ton of business with Source. We're great partners with them. We love those guys. We have a great relationship. So we don't view ourselves as competitors to those guys at all. We view ourselves as collaborators, in fact, with Source. Camelback, we just fucking hate because we think they make shit. And I know it's like totally not PC for CEOs and founders to criticize other companies like that.
Fuck it.
And I would say that we're objective and we live in truth, right? It's one of our core, it's one of our foundational values here,
It's one of your
and
core
core
values.
values. Yeah, and I don't have any problem telling Camelback that I think that they fucking make shit, and I'll say that to fucking anybody. I think Source makes great shit, though. Like we have tremendous respect for Source. We love their stuff. They really have an eye for quality and innovation. So, mad respect there. Those are the hydration companies, right? Then there's thermoregulation companies, which are companies that make cooling vests, right? But they're made out of phase change materials, paraffins, petroleum-based, plant-based stuff that you can't consume, right? What makes our thermoregulation unique is it's consumable. We also provide multiple phases of multiple types of thermoregulation: evaporative, cool, conductive, and convection, et cetera. So we have the hydration tangential competitors. We have the cooling vest tangential competitors, but nobody does consumable thermoregulation, and that's kind of where we live, right? So yeah, we don't really, and we're not really in the business like Yeti and Pelican are in. We don't make coolers, and we don't make vacuum formed thermoses and that kind of thing. So that's the water bottle market is not really our jam. We focus entirely on how we're able to affect physiological performance and using thermoregulation. And if it doesn't meet that, or if it doesn't free somebody from the constraints of their environments, then we don't really do it.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I can't get out of my head, and maybe it's just because I've been kind of on a Terminator binge lately, but like here at Qore Performance, we are bridging the gap between man and machine. And just, in my mind, I'm just like, I'm a Model T800 metal. No, fuck. Fuck. What was the quote? It's like
Polymimetic metal alloy or something like that.
something. Fuck.
Or
It's like
no,
human skin over metal
over
endoskeleton.
yeah, yeah, or hardened battle chassis. I think they
Yeah.
also use that sometimes. Well, as a fellow James Cameron nerd and Terminator franchise fan, I totally can empathize with that.
My final question, I was gonna ask you who like your least favorite person in the gun industry is, but you pretty much answered it with Camelback.
That's so funny. I mean, would you count Camelback as being in the gun industry like by design, or are they just like
I don't know what they are. I mean, I don't know. They're owned by a private equity firm, so private equity firms don't have a great track record of taking companies from good to great. They usually take great brands and great companies and not so much. It's not to say that all private equity firms are bad. They're not. Some are very good, and some run, have great portfolios that run great companies. But I don't think that Camelback is one of those examples.
Damn.
no?
So sorry, everybody, if you're offended by some CEO out there actually talking trash on their competition. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I think they
Whatever.
PSA, fuck Camelback.
Fuck Camelback, I guess. Yeah. Fuck Camelback, and also just like Arc'teryx can eat a dick still. I mean, they make pretty good stuff. I'm not going to get rid of my jacket, but like,
Nope.
they're also a company based out of Vancouver, BC, and I'm sure that like a bunch of cool dudes work for them. But I'm so mad about that fucking.
I do want to clarify the reason why we kind of shit on Camelback is because we as a company and as a team, we hate when incumbents rest on their laurels at the expense of the market. And in our view, that's exactly what Camelback has done. They came up with one innovation like 35 years ago, and they have not evolved it since. And they have had every opportunity. They've had tremendous revenue to do it. They have had access to talent, et cetera. And it's essentially the same thing, largely unevolved. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And, I think the reason why we have such strong feelings for it is not against Camelback, the company, but it's against leadership that is not driving the company to innovate and deliver superior value and ever evolving capabilities to empower their customers. And we view that as kind of a violation of the business customer covenant, right? Like we enter into a tacit and consensual relationship with each other where we're going to provide value and tools and, in exchange for money, but we're going to, as a brand, we should constantly be delivering new things. I mean, we, personally, we're huge fans of companies like Tesla and SpaceX because they are pushing the envelope and they are challenging the incumbents and they are disrupting the hell out of them. They are breaking down structures that inhibit innovation, and keep great things from customers. And we just are not fans of that. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that point. There is a method to our madness.
No, I mean, I wouldn't assume. One thing that I've learned from you so far in the last, 2 hours that we've talked, is that you are very deliberate and a well thought individual. And I think that translates well into your business. So when you said fuck Camelback, I knew there was a reason. Um,
Yeah,
I
like that's not something you throw out very
yeah,
often. Like there has to be a
there
reason.
has to be
No.
something, and I think the reason that you gave is a very valid one. And I'm not defending Camelback by any means, but I think the reason that they are able to be complacent is because, I mean, we get issued Camelback. I mean,
Yep.
every soldier gets issued a Camelback, and it
Yep.
is a
You
staple
guys get
of.
camelbacks?
Yeah, we get Camelbacks. That is one of the staples of your. I used to get in trouble. I don't anymore because now I'm a high enough ranking individual. Um, but I used to get in trouble because I used to carry a Nalgene and no Camelback because I'm like, fuck this Camelback. It's fucking heavy. It sloshes around. I can't get it tight on my kit. It just fucking jumps around. Fuck this Camelback. I'm going to carry a couple bottles of water or a Nalgene bottle. And my squad leader or team member would be like, hey, where the fuck's your Camelback? You're going to die. And I'm like, I have a
Yeah.
Nalgene bottle. They're like, no, the water out of that isn't as good as the water out of your Camelback.
What? Man, you want to know what I got fucking issued? Because I still have it. It's in my hand. Fucking this thing.
I got one of those.
Wow.
I got one of those too.
Yeah, I kept it. I actually really like it, but still, it's like it's a relic of the fucking 1970s. It's
I do think
Yeah.
when you have a brand and one product that is being issued to every single foot soldier and is being enforced just because people don't know better. Like literally, I would carry water, the equivalent amount of water that was in my Camelback. I would carry in loose water bottles or an Nalgene bottle, and I used to get in trouble because I wasn't wearing my Camelback. And I'm like, because the Camelback I can't pack. It just sloshes around. If I have to put my ruck on, it makes it fucking uncomfortable.
Sucks.
It sucks.
Can't sit in a vehicle.
Yeah, I can't do anything enjoyable with it. But with an Nalgene or loose water bottles, I still have water, but apparently
Yeah.
it wasn't good enough water. Now I don't get in trouble,
We,
and I'm the same way. I'll be like, hey, if you don't want to wear your fucking Camelback, I don't care. Just make sure you have water. Be an adult. Like, don't dehydrate. But when
well, I think you've identified Mitch. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. I cut you off.
no, go ahead.
I think what you've identified is one of the traps, the complacency traps that is a government contract. And I think this is one of the things that has been really awesome about the GWAT, right? Is that the GWAT has given birth to competition and innovation in the defense sector that the defense sector had never seen before, right? And it's now permeated almost every level. And thanks to companies like SpaceX, we now literally have it at every level. And I think that that's a great thing because really what I care about at the end of the day, and I'm sure you guys do too, right? It's all of our buddies that are still in uniform on the job. And it's about the people that we have trained that are going to do the job in the future, right? Or are on the job now. We care about the outcome, right? And when you care about the outcome, then you really want competition because competition is going to give them the best tools. But this is kind of like it's like the tragedy or the sin of government and government contracts is that government's largesse and its buying power inherently inhibit innovation, right? And it's why Camelbacks are still issued, and it's probably why everybody who's listening to this probably knows, right? Being issued isn't always the reputation you want, right? Nowadays, being
Agreed.
issued is the reputation like, oh, so that's the shittiest thing by the lowest bidder? Yeah, great, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that and not use that, right?
The way I see it, the government's always 5 to 10 years behind the high-end civilian.
Well,
market.
and as you
Oh,
proven,
yeah, like we have, yeah.
the 5 to 7
we have
years.
a saying here, right? Nobody prepares for the previous war better than the U.S. government. And it's kind of the same thing in innovation, right? Nobody is able to be more behind in innovation than the U.S. government. Nobody does a better job at being behind. And that's kind of like, I think government contracts and contractors can get caught in that.
No one does a better job at being behind than the U.S. government. Sorry, let me pull out my 1970s Canadian issue canteen.
Okay, maybe the Canadian government does a pretty good job at it too. I can't.
They're both pretty bad.
And then I see other governments, and I can't say it's government, right? Because when we look at like our friends from Norway and Sweden, like they're actually quite advanced, and Switzerland, right? Singapore. I mean, there's it is not a knock against government. It's just a knock against the way that our system has been built and and not our form of government. I think that that's getting into a civics thing, but the form of government is probably sound. But the fifth estate, right, the bureaucracy that has formed around it is not conducive to providing the absolute best tools to our brothers and sisters that are wearing the uniform and doing the job. And that's what we really care about,
No,
right?
at the end of the day, that money is better suited to giving a governor a raise or going to Lockheed Martin or Boeing.
Well, and like you talked about earlier, they were talking about 5 to 7 years to bring your product
Yeah.
to soldiers. Like,
Yeah, like
what logistics takes 5 to 7 years to be like, hey, this product's good, we like it, but it's going to take 5 to 7 years, not because of the company that's making it, because of us,
Right.
because of
like-
us on our
But
end.
because of us.
yeah,
Right.
It's like I really like watching. You know, like Ian McCullum, fucking Forgotten Weapons.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like,
Very cool.
Everyone knows. I don't even know why I'm asking, but half of the stories that he has is like, this was something made for a government contract, but it never went through. It's like
Right.
90% of the newer weapons are just like, yes, this was made for the Department of Defense, and this was made to fulfill a government contract, and it just never went through.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I think there's so many examples of it, right? And just because you had mentioned Boeing and Lockheed, right? I think there's even a key difference between Boeing and Lockheed. Boeing still has to compete against Airbus. They have to compete against Embraer, against Bombardier, Gulfstream. Boeing has a side.
Bombardier. I don't
Well-
think they have to worry about Bombardier too much anymore. But
maybe not anymore, but Airbus, for all that they can be
Yeah.
criticized for, is formidable competition, right?
Very much so.
Embraer, same thing. And they have a side of their business that is exposed to the private sector, and I think it keeps
Yeah.
Boeing very sharp, right?
Yes, it was
and
kind of a
it-
shitty example for the military-industrial complex.
Well, but I think there's a great one that probably your listeners are probably going to be very familiar with. YF-22 versus YF-23. I don't think we've ever seen in the history of government procurement a better example of maybe the best innovation didn't win, right, than YF-22 versus YF-23. Subject to some debate. I'm not a pilot. I really don't know anything, but I've read a lot about it, and it seems like there's a lot of people that were very well versed in that. And
Yeah.
when you look at everything on paper, like, who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it didn't. Maybe the best innovation didn't win.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and even just like a simpler example that a lot of the gun people are going to know is like, why did the SIG P320 win over the Glock in
Yes.
the U.S. pistol trials? And the answer is simple: because it was cheaper.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying SIG makes bad products, but when you compare it
No,
to a
they
Glock,
don't.
like Glock
No,
is
not at all.
the gold fucking standard, as it should be.
Yeah.
I was talking with, I think it was Spartan. I don't remember the numbers after his name. The Asian gun guy, Spartan.
Yeah, Haley Strategic.
Yeah,
Data.
yeah, yeah.
I like him.
Greg Wong.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
He,
look great, yeah.
Shout out to fucking Greg Wong.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll hear this. We were talking the other day. He's a cool guy.
yeah, he posted a meme, something about like people shitting on Glock, but also being like, "What do you carry, Glock?" And I was just thinking, I'm like, my first ever handgun I ever bought was a Glock 19, and then I went and bought a Glock 43, and then I'm like, I want to get another handgun. You want to know what I went and bought? A Glock 19. I have 2 Glock 19s.
Yes.
And I love it. Like it is the
know what?
perfect. And
Glock is dope.
I've shot SIGs. Nothing against SIGs. I mean,
Yeah.
they had that malfunctioning problem where it was
the
just
P320 has a really good, like compared to a Glock, I like the P320 trigger more. But my first experience in a 320, if I would like, and this is a me thing. Like I'm trying to shoot really, really tight groups as a kind of new shooter many years ago. At like 25 meters, I'm trying to shoot like the center of a pie plate, which is easy. It's easy now, but like back then, I didn't know my head from my ass. But I would pull the trigger really, really, really slowly, get all of that creep, and apparently there's this inbuilt safety that if you pull the trigger too slowly, the gun just disables itself. So I would hit the brake and just nothing would happen. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It just maybe that was by design. I Googled the problem, and I just got into a Glock 17, which went fucking bang every time. But
Well, I think Glock is a great example of how competition delivers better products to the defense industry. I mean, I think Glock has made a lot of other gun companies better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and
Like,
speaking,
now fucking everything's a polymer striker
Yeah.
fired pistol now. That's like 90% of the market.
and
More.
and to give another testimony to Glock, one of on my most recent deployment, one of the coolest things I was able to do, I was embedded with an ODA team. We were uplift, and we had Berettas still, and we were looking
Yeah.
at what they were carrying. For starters, I don't know if this is every ODA team or just like a couple, but the ones that we were with, they were bringing their personally owned weapons to Afghanistan. That's how I had heard about LaRue. I was talking with the Bravo. Um, I'll say his name. His name is Willie. And he had a LaRue 308, and I'm like, like, what is that? He's like, oh, LaRue sent this to me to use on deployment and to get feedback on it. And I'm like, oh, like that's cool. And they were all carrying like different weapons. Obviously, they still had their military issue M4s. They had scars, but they were for the most part running personally owned weapons. And one thing that was similar between all of them, they all ran Glocks. Every single one of them had a Glock. Every single one had a Glock. And I was looking at some of our folks, our 240 gunners specifically, they were carrying Berettas, and they were just getting shit on for having the Beretta while they're carrying a Glock. And it's like, well, yeah, a Glock's fucking better than a Beretta. A Glock,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it can come down to personal preference, but it's the same thing with SIG. I got nothing against SIG, but if you're going to present the SIG P320 and a Glock 19 in front of me, I'm going to take a Glock 19 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Right,
And you know, you can even see Glock, the power of Glock in the market, right? I think we all probably remember the days when SIG made the 226, the 228.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those were great guns, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're a DASA fan or not, those are great, great guns.
Yeah.
But my gosh, like, you know, Glock showed the industry what the market wanted, and SIG has had to evolve, and I think they've done a good job of evolving to what the market wanted. But what the market wanted was more competition for Glock. You know, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, it didn't want more P228s and 226s.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, though, it's not always the better product that wins the military contract. Maybe it used to be. I can't speak for what it was, you know, in World War II and Vietnam, but now I can tell you from personal experience, like the plate carriers are shit, the IOTVs are shit, the plates are heavy as fuck. Like Hesco makes better plates. You know, like I can,
Yep.
for everything that I've been issued, I can tell you a better civilian alternative. And I say civilian,
That's
and I
probably
kind of
cheaper.
and I cringe at myself saying civilian, but like I don't know how else to describe it between like a military,
Commercial.
yeah, commercial,
Yeah. Commercial's a good word.
even with like the sleeping systems, the military sleeping system is heavy as fuck, and it doesn't work that well. I went out and bought
Yep.
a civilian, what was it called? Sierra, I think it was Sierra Mountain sleeping system. And when I was in cold weather survival training before we did our FTX, where it was you don't get a sleep system, I had that thing compared to the standard issue one. It was night and day difference. And the commercial market always wins. And you can get away with certain things in the military, but there's certain things you can't get away with, like a Camelback. Why the fuck don't you have a Camelback? The water out of the Camelback is holy water. And it's like, well, I'm carrying a Nalgene bottle that carries water. No, can't have that. And it's the same thing with guns. It's the same thing with, you know, Camelback. It's the same thing with a lot of things. And that is one of the greatest tragedies when it comes to products, because like you said, you have a product that can not only, you know, prevent injury, and injury is a huge thing in the military. People are getting injured all the
It's
time,
huge.
especially heat injuries.
Oh, it's yeah.
You have a product that prevents and reduces a chance of a heat injury. It's not heavy. You can drink it, so you're still hydrating yourself, but it's going to take 5 to 7 years. And in 5 to 7 years, maybe you've developed a newer, more lightweight, more effective system. But now we're getting something from 2015 that still works, but in comparison to what can be offered, it's not that great.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, if you looked at from, you know, when we had that presentation, March of 2016 till now, we've evolved the ice plate. I mean, I think we're on like maybe our fifth generation. Now, the market may look at it as just ice plate classic versus ice plate curve, but we know like there's been a lot of iterations and changes that we have made to those products as we've evolved them over the years. And I think we're probably on generation 5 or 6 now. So yeah, I mean the military, on their time scale would have still been issuing the very first ice plate that we presented to TradeHawk in March of 16, and we'll have a better one out, that does way more. Just in the course of natural competition, because we're not going to rest on our laurels either. I mean, we're going to constantly, one of the main reasons I love being able to talk to customers every day is because customers drive our innovation, right? I mean, we listen to everything that our customers tell us at every level. And, to anybody who's listening, like that literally counts across the entire spectrum, and every platform, every medium. And we take all of that into account, and it helps us, innovate faster. I mean, 5 generations in 5 years is really not because of us. It's because the market pushes us to be better, and we really want to serve the market. So it just kind of works naturally and harmoniously. But if the military was doing it, it would be, hey, we're going to issue the first gen, even though they have Gen 6.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. That's that complacency that Camelback has. They made one good product. The government issued it.
Fuck Camelback.
Yep. And now the government's like, oh, everybody gets a Camelback. We don't care about upgrades. Oh, maybe there's a company that can upgrade it.
All my homies hate Camelback.
Yeah. But it's going to take 5 to 7 years, so who knows? It's a trend.
Yeah, I mean, and the worst part about that is that there are soldiers, Marines, airmen, sailors, everything that are becoming heat cats today, totally preventable, right? Because of all the issues that we've identified, in our conversation here, and that is very frustrating. I think, at least for us, it's very frustrating because we know it can be prevented, and we look at our commercial customers that people can find. It's very public information. But we have, I don't know, I think our latest number is like we have around a little bit over 4 million hours worked without a single heat injury. And I mean, when you count all of our commercial customers, I mean, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands, probably, of reps at this point, and individuals using the product in heat every day in and day out, no issues, and that exact same thing could be translated into the military. I mean, it's the military's own data and numbers that we use to develop the product. We know it'll work.
Yeah, well, I could rant all day about how
all day
incompetent the military, specifically that specific sector of government, the military specifically, is the most frustrating. Probably because I'm a part of it and because I've seen it for so long. But
yeah, and you were a heat casualty,
and I was a heat casualty,
and you were a heat casualty,
and I was a heat casualty. I mean, it is.
You're literally the subject matter.
Yeah, it is extremely frustrating. And that is why I encourage people to not join the military. But I'm not going to get into that. That's another episode. But Justin, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yes, thank you so much. It was
an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Mitch and Nathan, both.
Yeah,
anytime. It's been it's been wonderful.
The floor is yours. Promote yourself. Talk about yourself. Talk about your company.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want.
It's time for fucking Shill Saturday.
Yeah, Shill Saturday, and then
well, Shill Sunday, because this comes out on Sunday. It's not even Saturday or Sunday right now, but they don't need to know that.
Yeah. I'll just say, one, thank you guys so much for having us on. We really, really appreciate it. We've been, as you guys know, huge fans of the page.
Thank you.
Since we discovered you, and I think it was Mike Jones that turned me on to you guys.
Who's Mike Jones?
So big shout out to Grant Thumb for that.
Mike Jones.
Oh fuck! Oh yeah, Mike. Oh shit!
Yeah. Oh. This is
my fuck.
This is the first time I've been drunk for a little while. So
yeah, likewise. Yeah. It's been since I haven't drank in 4 or 5. We got to record with Mike at some point, but we'll save that.
Yeah. He's a great dude.
Yeah,
he's pretty fucking cool.
So
yes, I think we have him to thank for introducing, or at least telling me about you guys. So I just want to say thank you, and how grateful we all are as a company, as a team, that there's other individuals out there like you guys that can help spread the word of freedom, that not
Thank
everybody
you.
is just going to fucking roll over, you know,
and
that
vice versa. Thank you for being a company that actually fucking puts your money where your mouth is. And I'm glad other people are following suit. I'm glad that you kind of led the charge in that, and I'm glad that like Warrior Poet and everyone else is coming on board to that. That's I hate to overuse the word. I started using the word based ironically because it's so annoying. but like now I just use it unironically all the time, and I kind of hate myself for it. But based, I guess I will use that once.
Yeah.
I
One
have to
time on
admit,
this podcast for
I'm
White
gonna
Claw.
I'm gonna have a moment of total vulnerability. I'm not gonna go the shill route. I'm gonna make myself very vulnerable here and
No, of
admit
course.
that several months ago, or earlier this year, I don't remember exactly when, I actually had to ask my team in here. I was like, guys, do you know what based means? I actually had never even heard it
Based on
before.
what?
Yep.
Yeah, it was like, I guess like I am, I mean, I'm a nerd. Like I watch fucking science and engineering videos on the weekend when my wife is away, like, and I was like, I'm not that cool. Like I don't even know what this means, guys. And so like I turned to like some of my design team, and they're 23, and I'm like, guys, do you guys know what this means? And they're much hipper than I am, and they were even like, based? Nobody uses based anymore, Justin. I'm like, guys, right here. Look it on our feed. I don't know how to respond to this. Are we getting ripped, or are they telling us like good job? I don't know.
Well, it's a good thing. And it should be. You should be getting a lot of those comments.
Yes.
If you're listening, go comment based on Qore Performance post, please.
Yes. Go comment based. Just make sure you comment based.
We have a YouTube video coming out, I think tomorrow or the next day, so everybody can go roll on that one and drop based there.
Baste them like a turkey.
Well, in a continuation of our self masturbation we got going on here, AWS. Thank you guys for sponsoring us.
Yes, AWS. It's like the Costco of the belt world.
Yeah, they got awesome belts. Been running them for years.
Yeah,
Applied Gear, also great belts.
I really like mine. I really like mine. I just moved it upstairs. I'd show you, Justin. It's a pretty good fucking belt.
Yep.
I know you guys make your own belts, but
No, we don't. We're not in the belt business. We make.
Fuck! For some reason,
we just make ice fence pads for belts. Like we're very.
That explains it.
If you want me to shill, I'll just say like we are not a pouch company. We're not really a load bearing company. We don't compete against companies like Cry or Blue Force Gear or anybody like that. We have our own lane that we've talked about here. It's just performance enhancement, thermoregulation. That's what we do.
I mean, I will be the first to say I will shill for you a little bit. Again, no relation to the company. The ice plate EXO carrier is fucking dope, and it's dope. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Go get yourself one, along with an AWS belt and.
Yes,
the
AWS belts are dope. They're very good. I'm literally wearing my AWS inner belt right now because I'm very lazy and I don't like changing. It's very easy to change between pants. Like I'm not even.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It works.
Yep.
That's huge.
And Applied Gear,
very comfy.
The same thing. Great belts, except everyday carry belts. So different type of belt, but belts nonetheless.
Super stiff. They have a nice little Cobra buckle.
Very stiff.
You put your little concealed carry holster on that, and it's just nice. Yep. It's very cute.
Well, that's our show. You got anything else, Justin? Any other shows that you want to make for yourself?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having us on.
Oh,
it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Anytime. We'll have to do this again at some point.
Yeah, true pleasure.
And we can't wait to have you guys to come out and visit.
Yeah, I would love that personally.
Yeah, so would I.
Planning, a road trip at some point. Now I have my little Prius, my like little gray man car. I'm gonna do a little road trip sometime.
You'll only have to stop for gas once. It'll be great. You'll make it here in record time.
It'll be wonderful. Everyone will think I'm a soccer mom. If it's all good, I would like to end on one particular quote from Terminator 2. Cyberdyne Systems Model 101. I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over metal and a skeleton. Fuck, my accent's bad. Okay.
Oh, that was great.
Okay, bye.